1, secured. Checkpoint 2, secured. Checkpoint 3. Checkpoint 3 secured. All hands secured. Opening bunker.
Pow! Didn't see that coming. Yeah, I had to work that out through my bunker security team. So give me one sec here, folks. I got a little feedback in my ear with my YouTube channel. So quick update from me going forward. I may be. It is possible that I end up dropping off of YouTube, and it's I'm testing out a few things, but I think I'm streaming to just too many damn platforms, and I have to start prioritizing the ones that matter. And while some people may think that YouTube would be a channel that matters, it unfortunately is not, because they just are relentless with the shadow banning and suspending and everything else, and it's just impossible to grow the channel there. So and even now, even with the 1,400 or so followers that are still there, that number, has been right at that level now for like the last 7 months, 8 months, because nobody ever gets, one guy jumped off of there and onto Rumble. And by the way, this broadcast is not going to Rumble today, but that is not a permanent thing. I put a link onto the Rumble channel where I do get most of my viewers from. But for some reason, I don't know if it's a Rumble thing now. I know I double checked and triple checked all the links and everything else. It should be streaming there, but apparently it's not. But we have Article 5 updates today, so I want to, and they actually, the updates actually happened on Tuesday, but I wanted to make sure that I put out something to acknowledge them, because it matters. It's cause season. We all know here at this channel that Article 5 is the only way. It is the only way that we are going to get this nation back in check. The elections are all well and good, but that's not fixing it. It's not fixing it. The only thing the elections are going to impact is pretty much the border. After that, yeah, we get Trump in there. He can mess with China a little bit, I guess. But in the end, no president is going to be able to solve the issues that we have of our day. And you say, well, what, George? The border is one of the issues. Well, it is. But it's one of. And the real, the enormous issues that just seem so insurmountable that they cannot be challenged. Things like, like the national debt, right? Which everyone seems to think doesn't matter. It does. The house of cards will come collapsing down, and when it does, it goes down fast. It's not like a slow evolution. Everything seems fine one day, and the next day you get a thing on the news telling you it's totally collapsed, and we've now, as a point of emergency, moved on to CBDC. And so that's something we need to rectify. That is in this convention calling. All right, for those that don't know what the Article 5 Convention of States is, maybe you're new to the channel, maybe by some rare event, Facebook put this in your feed without you asking. That almost never happens, but perhaps that's the case. Then I will tell you, Article 5 is the second clause of Article 5 of the Constitution, where an Article 5 in general will outline how amendments to the Constitution can be made. Clause 2 is one that has never been used. Clause 1 is what we all know, or we should know, if we're doing any work at civics whatsoever. And that's 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, both vote to propose on the language of a proposed amendment, and then it gets handed to the states for 3/4 of the states to ratify that amendment, and then it becomes a part of the Constitution. And the second clause, however, does not involve the federal government, and it was put there for that reason. It was put there in the event that the federal government would become a tyranny, to the point where the federal government no longer cares or is acting in the best interest of the United States, but are rather acting in the best interest of themselves. That is why this is there. That is why the Convention of States option is there. That is the entire purpose of this. And so this is a method where the states just the state legislatures, not governors, none of that. State legislatures, which is where the power in this country, in this constitutional republic, was designed to be. Those state legislatures, we appeal to those local representatives, our district representatives. Those representatives vote on resolutions. They petition the Congress. 2/3 of them petition the Congress for the calling of a convention of states for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. Once they have done so, once that 2/3 or 34 states have done so, Congress shall call a convention. All right, not Congress gets to decide something or there's some decision, none of that. At that point, when 2/3 of the states decide they want to convene on specific topics for amendment, they do. And right now, those topics for this particular calling, which now has 19 states on board, and we are just starting the season of the state legislatures, that convention gets called. Once it gets called, the states then will select delegates. It doesn't matter how many. Every state gets one vote. Those delegates will be sent to, it's similar in that way to the Constitutional Convention, but it is not a constitutional convention. But the procedure and such is similar. The states will all go send their delegates. You could send 5, you could send 20 per state. It doesn't matter. They get one vote. When they get there, they convene. They discuss the topics at hand, those topics now being term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach. Notice that all 3 topics reduce government power. There is nothing that can be brought up to increase government power. Okay, so if you want to do that, if you want to increase, you could, but you'd have to call a completely separate convention and start from scratch. Right? So I have all the resolutions that have been passed so far, all the ones that are coming. I updated today for Massachusetts, but all of those resolutions are readable. You can see them, go through them. They all say the same thing, and they all have those 3 main topics. All right, so Massachusetts went to committee today. So big deal, right? For those of us in the grassroots business, that's a big deal. And you may say, well, it just went to committee. That's not a big deal. And for those of you who don't understand state legislation, it is, of course, my mission to bring civics back, make civics great again. And I can explain to you a bill or a resolution or a bill that needs to get passed will first need a sponsor, so a citizen can put it together, but you will need a sponsor, which would be probably your local representative. It doesn't have to be, but it probably would be. You approach your local representative. If they sponsor it, then it goes to committee. If the committee passes it, it goes to the House and Senate. All right? They pass it. In the case of a resolution like this, it's done. In the case of an Article 5 resolution, it's done. If it were legislation or something along those lines, it would then go to the governor to be signed. So that is how this works, all right? And Massachusetts today went to committee. So you say, but George, Massachusetts, isn't that like a super liberal, like, out of control type of deal where, there's no way they're going to do it? And why would the grassroots be excited about that? Because the grassroots understand this is not a partisan event. This is not a partisan event. These topics cover everybody. I've said once, I'll say a million times, there is no Democrat, Republican. That's a BS illusion to keep people divided. There are Americans and there are Marxists. That is what we are dealing with in today's America. That is what we are dealing with in today's world with respect to there are citizens who are freedom-loving citizens and there are Marxists. And this globalist movement is Marxist. So anybody who's down with it, whether they don't like the term Marxism or if they're dumb enough to try and defend it and give you those, well, Marxism has never really even been tried. And like if they were educated like that, there's no saving those people, but that's what camp they're in. All right, and we're talking about this camp. We're talking about the Americans camp. All right, I had someone from the UK. That last video that I put out was kind of mangled up. It was kind of, it had some audio issues and things like that. And I thought that's what they were talking about. But really what he was trying to tell me is it was muted at a certain point in the UK. Like they actually just turned my mic off in the UK at a certain point. It's like they listened long enough and then they were like, this guy could be dangerous. He could be an insurrectionist with all this Article 5 stuff. So they muted it. And that's not uncommon. I've got quite a few followers overseas, and those followers will tell me that often that, hey, your video's muted, your mic is off. And because I've, from time to time, will have audio issues, I initially believe that that's what they're sent, that's what they mean. But then I learned later that no, like the people here in the States could hear it. It was just people overseas who were silenced. And why? Why would that happen? Why would those people be silenced over a conversation about Article 5? Because it's a threat, folks. You're not going to hear about it. You're not going to hear about it until that 19 number gets up to around 25 and they realize the cat is out of the bag. People are starting to figure it out. Until we get to that point, they're going to keep their mouths shut, because the reality of the matter is, well, JBS, and the Women's League of Voters and those other Soros organizations like Common Cause, those types of groups will still be vocal. But you won't see it in the paper. You won't see it anywhere else, because the idea is if they can't scare you out of using your power, they're just not going to talk about it and try and keep you dumb. And that was the point of taking civics out of classrooms and replacing it with the Marxist course of social studies, which they want to argue is the same as civics, but it's not. It's not, and it's the reason, the fact that it exists is the reason why so many people call this country a democracy. This is the reason they don't know that it's a constitutional republic, or they know that it's a constitutional republic, but they think it's sort of kind of the same thing as a democracy. All that type of nonsense. And the reality of the matter is, this miseducation may have gone on for a long time, but it's never too late to pick up a book. It's never too late to go back, learn some history, and really understand, what the intention and the reasoning behind our system of government is. And if you look around the world, there's a famous video that goes around online, and it keeps circulating every year. I see it come up at some point. I forget the actor's name, but he's sitting in front on a stage, and someone talks about American exceptionalism and being a free country, and he starts off this ridiculously ignorant rant with, a lot of countries are free. There are 180 countries that are free. And every time I see it, I come back to him and I'm like, no, there is only one free country. There is only one. Because there is a difference between freedom being inherent in your governmental system. There's a different, freedom of speech is not the same everywhere else that it is here. It is not the same. They can make hate speech laws in other countries. Why? Because there's no guarantee of freedom. Freedom is granted by the government in those countries. Here, it is granted by God. And there's no government that can, there's no vote that can happen to undo that. There is none. There's no majority, there's no supermajority, there's no anything that can be done to undo that. It's a big difference. So the grassroots know that. So the fact of the matter is, even though it's Massachusetts, and I'm going to put on a clip from, what did I do with that note? I had some notes here, and then I went and scrambled everything up, and now I don't know where the hell they are. Here we go. So it is Haley Shaw, who's the regional director over on the East Coast, the Northeast, and she spoke a little bit about what she's got coming, how she felt about the event. Michael Ferris, who's a co-founder, excellent legal mind, and he has legislated a lot of precedent for Article 5. He goes ahead and speaks, and then tons of grassroots folks came up to speak. And you can catch that if you go to conventionestates.com. You can head over to YouTube or Rumble. If you go to conventionestates.com, it should be one of the top go there to sign the petition, but to see the video, go to their YouTube channel, Convention Estates Project. You should see it amongst their latest videos. And I would skip through towards the midway, towards the last third of it, where that's where the testimonials from the grassroots finally started getting done. And just listen to the folks. They drove hours. I want to play a clip from Haley Shaw about this, because she talks about, Like the fact that these guys drove for hours, and Representative Zaros, which is interestingly pronounced XIA, spelled, I mean, XIARHOS, who is the representative of the 5th Barnes District in Massachusetts. And he's the one who sponsored this bill. And this passed committee last year. And the idea for Grassroots, even though you might say, oh, it's Massachusetts, Grassroots, myself included, do not see this as partisan. So the reality is they got this through committee last year. And there's no reason why a good standing human being, if there's a Democrat who loves this nation, and you may be like, there are none, there are. And they're found all over the country. They have different views than conservatives for sure, but their basic tenets and principles still lie with the freedoms that we carry. They just have different opinions on other political issues. But the issues at hand, they're in agreement with. And there's nowhere you're going to find a politician, there's no better chance of finding a true Democrat who, is loyal to what the Democratic Party was before, many politicians in it switched to Marxism. There's nowhere better to find that than in state legislatures. So the fact that the legislature's committee, the committee of, it was the committee of, I just got done getting this, and I should have committed it to memory. It is the Joint Committee on Veterans Federal Affairs. There we go. Yeah, that's an easy one. Rolls right off the tongue. So that's who they presented to today. And Zaros, he calls himself Rep X, and he was actually on that committee. So hopefully we can get some sway there and just convince these individuals that this is the right way to go. And true to form, the hearings, and if you go and watch it on Convention of States Project on YouTube or Rumble, if you go and watch it, you'll see how polite and respectful everybody is, right? There's no need to act like animale. Right? There's no need for that. I mean, in the end, they went in there. Each person that spoke was like, "Thank you for taking the time." Everybody that went down there drove for hours. None of them live in Boston. They drove for hours. They filled up the room, all right, and they drove for hours and hours through snow, all that to get to, because it's important, right? It's important. So for those of us who we have our reasons for not trying to help, not everyone has to drive hours and hours through snow, but you can at least sign the petition, at least stand forward and be counted, at least, know who the people in your area are, which will be introduced to you as soon as you sign up, all right? Know who they are, know who like-minded folks are. If you can make meetings, that's great, right? Help organize. Because there's no way for the people to be represented unless we can organize. If all of us sit there and say, well, I got too much, I got work, I got to take care of the kids, I got a lot of chores and things to do, it's football Sunday, whatever the story is, if that's going to keep happening, it's important to understand that all of those things may very well not exist if you don't. That many of those things, many of these pleasures that we enjoy as Americans, and frankly, people around the world, many of these things will simply disappear when this hits. When these globalists, it's not like it's coming slow, right? It's been a slow ramp up in effect that we talk about it, but in the end, this fourth industrial revolution that Klaus Schwab is so ready to jump in front of is coming. It's coming like a freight train, even if the WEF is not involved. Even if the WEF doesn't even bother to do another thing. This tech revolution is coming. There is no stopping that now. It's human nature. The battle here is not to stop it. The battle here is who's going to control it. Because if they get control of it, it's a wrap, folks. You'll be talking about how cool it was back when you were able to have a job, and back when you weren't on universal basic income, and back when you could buy things and you could better your life rather than be stuck and made sure to be equal to everyone else financially, regardless of your effort. That's the way we should be comparing that stuff, because all of those things will go away quickly. And frankly, if you're older, and you've got grandkids and kids, the grandkids are the ones that are really going to By the time they come of age, if these coconuts, these dootaroos out there in the globalist movement, if they get their way, by the time your grandchildren come of age, you will have left them an absolute disaster of tyranny. And they may not even know it. They may not even know what freedom was. They may think they are free. While government entities control what they can spend, while government entities control where they can go, what they can eat, where, all of it. All of it. That's why these things are a big deal. And it's important that we celebrate the wins, all of them. And getting in front of committee is a win. It's a win. Getting in front of committee is a win. Getting through committee, that's another win. Getting through the House, getting through the Senate, 2 more wins. All of these things are wins, and they all matter. And I want to keep you guys updated on what's going on, because once we're out of state legislative season, things slow down. So this is the time. This is the time, if you live in Massachusetts, you should immediately be, I don't care if you're doing it while you're watching this. Click over to the website. All right, you can go to the patriotthinktank.com. I've got a link right in front that'll take you over to the cause page where you sign up, sign the petition, and click on volunteer and move on. They'll write a letter. They'll send it to your representative. They'll let you know who your representative is if you don't know. But this is how the nation was designed to work. It's designed to work locally. It's designed to work. When you have a grievance, you take it to your local legislator. And they, in turn, bring that message to the state legislature, who then, in turn, brings that message to the federal government. Normally, traditionally, in the form of an order. That doesn't happen really as much anymore because we've all forgotten how this country is supposed to even work. But that's how it works. And the reality of the matter is, getting this done changes that relationship forever. Let me get into this. Let her talk about her people. It's a really short clip. Just give me a sec.
The team was ready and prepared, so I'm really impressed and I'm really proud of the team and what they did today. If you didn't know, we drove through a bunch of snow to get here, so it wasn't the easiest day to get to Boston. Nobody really lives in Boston on the team, and they came from a couple hours away, and that was the most impressive part, is that they committed to being here in person. But the committee was great. Our sponsor, Representative Zaros, was wonderful. He gave us a great opening. It was a little chaotic in the beginning. The chair of the committee wasn't there initially. He himself was stuck in traffic. So it kind of got off to a shaky start, but the team did a really wonderful job just coming together and keeping their composure.
Right. And thank you, Haley Shaw. I like this one. This is the first time I've actually seen Haley speak, and you could just feel the energy off of her. Right. There's no part of her that is saying, I'm in Massachusetts, it's too liberal, we can't get this. No part of her that's saying that. Every part of that woman, you can just tell by listening to her, is about, let's get this done. Let's let's educate these legislatures, right? And that we all know, those of us who've been around for a while know that's what it's about. It's about educating these legislatures. State legislatures, the federal legislature doesn't know anything about the Constitution at all. But state legislatures, these are average folks, most of them. These are folks who are serving. They're not getting paid a ton. They're not in session all year long, all the time. Well, most states aren't. And the fact of the matter is, these are regular folks. And when these are regular folks who don't know, right? You look at it and say, how much do you know about Article 5? How much do you know? And if the answer is not that much, number one, don't be ashamed, just learn. Because the fact of the matter is, it was by design. It was by design that you don't know much about Article 5. It's by design that we all call our great republic a democracy. That's by design. There are active people who have been for decades actively trying to change that verbiage because words matter. Even Donald Trump, right from his pulpit, is pitching out, we got to save our democracy. They're attacking our democracy. I throw up in my mouth a little bit every time it happens. right? We got to change that. Words matter. They matter to these people, and the way that we got into the position we're in right now is because they're controlling the words. They're controlling the verbiage. They got the strongest and greatest nation on earth to completely misunderstand what it's about, what its goals are, why it exists, the whole nine. Even those who claim to love the country, and I don't doubt their love for country, but I do understand that love for country is not the same as knowing how your country works, and it does matter. And the simple act of signing a petition just to flood these folks with letters, right? Because this is the time to do it. This, if you're on that committee, right? Obviously, Rep X there, he's the sponsor, so it is what it is. But if you're one of the other members on that committee, and you're not sure who to believe, and you're not sure, what to do, getting a flood of letters from your constituents saying that, we support this convention of states, we support term limits, we support, fiscal restraints, we support government overreach amendments, we support restraining the power of the federal government and putting it back in its 10th Amendment box. If they're getting flooded with letters like that, if they're getting flooded with information like that, they have to take notice. These people represent smaller districts. If you've got 10,000 people in your district and 500 of them took the time to write you a letter on one particular topic, your eyes are open. Your eyes are open. That's the bottom line. And it's such a simple act to do. It's such a simple thing to do. You could do it, front page of my website, right there, big button right in the middle, take you right to the cause page where you sign the petition. And I highly encourage you to click volunteer as well. Why? Because someone local to you, like an easy driving distance, will reach out and talk to you, and just like-minded people, right? We need to break from the media reality that this country is split in half. It's not. It's split like 75-25, 70-30. We don't know that because we're not in touch with each other. Let somebody local reach out to you. They will help you they will help educate you. They will get you the materials that you need, just like they get the materials to these legislatures that they need. Because every one of these states that has not turned over in the past, whenever we have a rush of states, and that's usually how it happens, you get a few at once. All right, we had, West Virginia, Nebraska, they're all escaping me, South Carolina. Well, all these states came over at once. All right, but it was years to do that. Why? Because none of them understood Article 5. They were all scared out of their power, and all of them went ahead, and they were just so fearful. Rather than just read, they were so fearful that they did nothing. Some of them who later sponsored resolutions prior were actively opposing it because they just didn't know. And then what was it? It was one constituent in some of these cases, more than one of these cases, that approached these representatives in both House and Senate in these states and handed them the documents and the information and some source material from the founders to read to and look at. And show them, not from their words, not from them trying to twist things and whatever and lobby, but from the words of the founders. And show them why this was made, why it's important. And after creating the 17th Amendment and giving away their power to control the federal Senate, like that was a massive screw up that this particular convention could fix. But that was a massive yielding of power from the states, never intended by the founders. How they got that through that year, 1913, they added income tax. They stripped states of their Senate power to appoint federal senators, and then they went ahead on top of that and created the Fed the day before Christmas Eve. Woodrow Wilson is my most hated president without even a close second. Without even a close second. 1913 should be a year that goes down in infamy for liberty. Infamy. But all that could be theoretically overturned in this convention. But the first thing we got to do, it's steps, right? First thing we got to do, let's just get state 20. Let's get state 20, and then when we get this to 34, let's get all over the delegate process. Let's see this thing through. Because once it's done, I'm telling you, 250 years from now, they're going to be talking about this in history books as the day liberty was saved. And whoever is in that grassroots movement, whoever is, a part of that, their photo, I tell the grassroots all the time, make sure you're looking good for those photos. Don't bring your Sunday best, because in the end, you may be immortalized in history books for centuries to come. Because this fight will be the last one, and the last one for a long time. And this movement right here, once completed, despite what gets ratified and what doesn't, I'd love to see my wish list get ratified, but I don't, that's not. What's important here is that the process completes, because once it completes, the relationship between the federal government and the people is forever changed. There is no quasi-scholar, no wannabe, Fruit Loop scholar who could step up and be like, this is going to end in catastrophe, because it'll have been done already. Now the question will only be, all right, guys, what do we want the federal government to do or not do next? And every time the federal government does something, they're going to have to take into consideration the people. They don't do that now. They go ahead, they take something wildly unpopular, and then they just pass it, and then they just they get on a podium and talk about how the American people were for it, despite everyone knowing that they're not, because they don't care. But they will care. They will care when they go down in history as being the reason why another power got stripped from the federal government. Because once that, right now the president can secure the border with the existing rules in place. If future presidents continue to disregard the border, if they just continue to be derelict in their duty on an issue so important, we can call another convention to address the border situation. The fact of the matter, the reason this is so important is that it's not the legislature, it's not the federal legislature that caused these problems. It's the Supreme Court that caused these problems. The Supreme Court is the one who grants these powers. Through BS interpretations of the Constitution, they have allowed the government to expand its power, and there's only one way to undo that. Only one. There's only one way to rectify a truly bad Supreme Court decision, and that is through constitutional amendment. So when it comes to that, and these amendments are going to be designed to strip power from the federal government that never should have been given to them in the first place, clearly we're not going to go to the federal government to propose the amendments. Clearly. But it is the only way. It is the only way to mandate with teeth a balanced budget amendment. It's the only way. Because they'll never do it on their own. And we can sit here and keep being baffled at how high the debt gets. Eventually, folks, the house of cards falls. The power to turn the debt clock backwards, which has never been done before, because you know why it's never been done before? Because we're the only ones that could do it. And right now, too many of us are afraid. Too many of us are cowering in our seats, hoping that we don't get hurt. There's nothing in this world more un-American than that. Nothing. But in the end, I want to go over two more pieces here. I got another clip from Haley Shaw. She's talking. Now, she is the regional director for Convention of States in the Northeast, and she threw something out there that I thought was interesting. Let me play it.
You have Massachusetts, but you have several other states, too. Can you tell us what else is going on in your region right now?
So I've got the Northeast Patriots. So we're New England and New York. We've just successfully filed in Rhode Island. So be on the lookout for hopefully a testimony soon in Rhode Island. In Connecticut and New York and also Massachusetts, we're gearing up for Surge Days. So if you're curious about those, reach out to those teams. We're trying to pack the state houses out here for all of our Surge Days and really just infiltrate with Convention of State supporters. those are the biggest things we've got going on. But as always, we're always busy, always have local meetings. So keep up with Convention of States on social media because we'll tell you what's going on.
So they are teeing up Rhode Island. Now, for those of you who don't understand the historical significance of Rhode Island, they were the last ones to sign on to the Constitution of the United States. They held out the longest, and ironically enough, when the simulation was held earlier this year, Rhode Island was the only state not there. So interestingly enough, Haley's got this movement going where she's may very well get in front of committee in Rhode Island. And mind you, I've spent this whole broadcast right now not talking about the states that are likely to go this year. Like, these are all extras. These are all, like, wow, how amazing this year could be kind of states. I mean, can you imagine pulling off Massachusetts and Rhode Island? I mean, that would be enormous. You may say, oh, but Rhode Island's so small, it doesn't matter. One vote. Everybody gets one. Rhode Island is as relevant as California when it comes to convention. They are as relevant as California. It's one vote. So awesome. Awesome work, and applause for Haley Shaw, because that's, and for Rep X there, Zaros, for sponsoring this bill. But Haley, man, you keep trucking. You're a beast. Keep going after it, and keep that message clean that this is not partisan. This is not partisan. Like, at some point, we got to all focus like adults and start realizing the problems that we have. And, I had someone from the UK, I was saying earlier how they were talking to me about how my videos get muted. Like, some of them get muted at certain points in the UK and other countries. And, but they went ahead and, because I asked them, I said, sometimes that happens in other countries. What country are you from? And the response they gave me was, I'm in the UK, but I understand the importance of America in this fight. And so I get that a lot. Is that, the global viewer is looking at this and looking at Article 5 is saying, wow, is this really a path? And it is. And that's why they stay. Because in the end, and frankly, they stay on longer than some of our own citizens. Because they want to keep an eye on what's going on with this thing. Because if we pull it off, they understand the significance for their country. They understand if the United States falls, it's over. It's over for everyone. Everyone around, the world becomes a globalist Marxist state if the United States falls to Marxism. That's not deniable. And these folks, these followers of the channel, most of the international ones that I get to see and talk to, online, are on Facebook. But I would say of the 18,000 followers on Facebook, there are probably 7,000 or so that are overseas. And the reason for that is those are people that got brought in with the WEF material that I've done and the global sex trade and things like that. And they stay because they see a path. Because it matters to them. Like, we're not looking at England. We're not looking at any of these places for how we're going to, save ourselves. Because it does, like England, if the UK fell to Marxism completely, the United States can still hold. We can still hold the line. If we fall, they cannot. Nor can anyone else in the world. It will be over. So it's important. So I want to address, especially for those of you who may not know some of the arguments against Article 5. One of them is that the argument where they try to paint the false narrative that our original convention that actually created the Constitution was one that was a runaway, and they acted far beyond what they were commissioned to do. I would guide you to Federalist Paper 40 for an immediate debunk of that, so you could hear it from a founder. But here, Michael Farris actually addresses it, and he also addresses the idea that the convention doesn't have to stay on topic. that the topics that the states give to their delegates, that they don't have to stay within that. They can go and somehow rewrite, rather like they go nuts with it. And Ferris showed up there and actually represented well, as he always does. But I wanna go ahead and play a quick clip from him.
I testify on this subject all over the country, and I want to just commend you. You guys have showed extraordinary patience today in listening to all this, and I just really, really appreciate it. I am going to deal solely with the question of whether it can run away. Let me give you a little background. I'm a constitutional lawyer. I've argued successfully twice in the Supreme Court of the United States on constitutional issues. I have also argued successfully constitutional issue in Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, even though I'm from Virginia. And I have litigated a case under Article 5 concerning the process of the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. The assertion that was made by several people earlier, more in relationship to the campaign finance issue, but the principles are the same, with whether or not a convention would be limited to its subject. The claim was made repeatedly that there is no precedent. Well, in a very technical, precise sense, that's true. Since we've never had a convention, there could never be a legal challenge to such a convention. But that doesn't mean, just because there's no specific precedent, doesn't mean that there's no general precedent. There is general precedent, and it's unassailable. And that all principally arises from the Equal Rights Amendment litigation. In that case, in that situation, Congress proposed the Equal Rights Amendment with a 7-year deadline. They purported to change the deadline and add 3.5 years on that. I was in that litigation representing legislators from the state of Washington. And then subsequently, in the last half dozen years or so, 3 states have claimed to ratify it despite the 7-year deadline, despite the expiration of the second deadline, and that's been litigated as well repeatedly. And every single court that has dealt with this issue has said that you can't change the rules in the middle of the stream. If you say you're coming together for 7 years, it's 7 years. Republican appointed judges, Democratic appointed judges, every single judge has said you can't change the rules in the middle of the stream. If you call a convention for a specific purpose, you can't change the rules in the middle of the stream and go off for a different purpose. The claim that this was done for the Constitutional Convention originally is a historical fallacy. I published an article in the Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy that refutes this. It's called Defying Conventional Wisdom. If you Google my last name, Farris, F-A-R-R-I-S, and Defying Conventional Wisdom, the article will come up readily on the internet for free. You can see that the original Constitutional Convention was not a runaway. The delegates obeyed their instructions that they got from their states. So the reason we have this convention is because Washington won't change itself. I don't care if the issue is term limits or balanced budget or campaign finance. You will be wishing and hoping forever if you expect Washington to fix any of these things, including campaign finance. The only way it's going to happen is to use the safety valves the framers gave us, and that is call a convention of states, and 38 states must ratify. The idea that someone said that they could change the ratification rule and not have 38 ratifications is not a serious statement. No lawyer would take that seriously. That's just simply fantasy land. I urge you to pass this 3541, and I thank you for your extraordinary patience.
All right, so it's 3541 is the resolution, and he covers a lot there, right? He covers a lot. He's just knocking down. And he does it with authority because he's been litigating this stuff for years. And there's no educated argument against an Article 5 Convention of States. And I'm not saying if you're against it, you're stupid or uneducated. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying on that particular topic, you've been led astray. All right? That's what I'm saying. Is that when you really deep dive into the arguments being made against it, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's no there. Okay, period. And Michael Arnold there says Rhode Island did not even attend. That's correct. So yeah, I talked about it like they were the last ones to sign, but he got even more specific. They didn't even attend the original Constitutional Convention. Rhode Island. Excuse me, Rhode Island's a piece of work. and not much has changed, right? But nonetheless, we're still hopeful that we can get in front of committee there. Diana Tellis says, thanks for doing what you do and covering Massachusetts. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Diana. And you know what? Every state matters in the Commonwealth, is one of our most historically sound states. And despite the fact that it tends to lean left on a political spectrum, this is, as you probably know already, this is not a partisan situation. I don't have on this software. I used to have on my other software the clips lined up with the statistics for the poll that was taken for voters, and I always highlighted the fact that it said 50.2% of Democrats were in favor of the 3 amendments, but I always highlighted the idea that there were 24.5 or something that were not sure. And I just changed the wording a little bit to say, well, that means that there are some close to 75% of Democrat voters who do not oppose a convention of states on these topics. And personally, I think that entire 24%, if it were presented to them in the right way and they got the right source material and they understood how it works, would jump on board. They would jump on board. That 25%, that's the Marxist percent in this country. 25 to 30%, I align that with the non-questioning folks, the conformists, and I do that not just off of the top of my head, but if you look at Solomon Asch and his famous conformity studies, you find that it's about 25 to 30% who, even after they know the lie was a lie, they still cling to the fact that it was true. And that also lines up with Dr. Matthias Desmet, who has done a lot of studies on mass formation, which is very similar to what Solomon Asch was trying to find. And he finds very similar numbers. It's about 30% that just, even after they know that it's not, no matter what you tell them, they're locked in. They're going with it. That's it. The world's going to end in 12 years. The 12 years comes up. They'll cling to anything you tell them. You tell them, nope, it's another 12 years. It just reset. There was a break in the equator, and now it's another 12 years. Yeah, well, you only say that because there was a break in the equator, and it's going to be another 12 years. Like, they'll jump right on. It's always that 30%. But it's the media's job to make everyone believe it's 50%. And what I also point out from those studies all the time is, to those of you who are out there, those of you who know that wearing masks was ridiculous, but didn't want to say anything because you just wanted to be left alone. You just wanted to get to work. You just wanted to go grocery shopping. You just want to do this and that. Those of us who spoke up, we still put it on to go grocery shopping. We still had to feed our families, but we spoke up. And why does it matter that you speak up? Because what happens when you don't speak up, all right? The way those percentages broke down, when you had the 30% do-to-dos, who just are coconuts and are locked in, and that's that. You had about 40% who were in that category, who were well, I knew it was wrong, but I just wanted to go with the group, or I knew it was wrong, but I didn't want to make waves. And then you got another 30% who are kind of like me and most of the people that watch this channel, who are like, looked at it and went, hell no, this is wrong, this makes no sense, and started asking questions immediately. Well, that middle 40%, when they keep their mouths shut, when they don't say anything, they make the 30% of do-to-dos think that they have 70%. That's what happens. And now they're emboldened, and now they act even more do-to-do-ish, if that's a word. But in the end, that's the problem. It's that 40% that needs to join the other 30%, not the crazies. They need to join the 30% who are speaking sense and asking questions. And when it came to the polls, as far as how Democrat voters felt, that's why I say, yeah, 52% said they're in favor of it, but it's almost 75% who are not opposed. And that number should be a lot closer to how many, give 5% of those might cross the other line, but that other 20% are ours because they think and they ask questions and they love freedom and they love this country. And they may disagree with you on abortion and on unions and on other issues like that. But when it comes to whether or not this country is going down a sewer, when it comes to whether or not that we're going to be fiscally broken in a short period of time, when it comes to whether or not our federal government is completely overreached with powers never granted to it in the Constitution, when those issues come up, they're in check. They're in agreement. And those are the only issues that matter right now. For this particular convention, those are the issues that matter. And frankly, most of them are in line with the border argument as well. But we don't see that agreement. We don't see that publicly, right? We don't see it because people who speak up get scanned off the internet, right? They get skimmed off the internet. It's killing me that this is not streaming to Rumble right now. I promise if there are any Rumble viewers who followed the Facebook link and came to Facebook, it doesn't look like that many people are on the Facebook link right now. But if there are anybody over there that came or you see this later, just know I'm going to have it fixed. I may do a special just for Rumble, just to kind of make up for it and kind of catch up on the things that were missed in these last two streams, because this one I expected a lower audience because I never come on Friday, but I just wanted to, get out here and put something out there for people to share that you will see the argument, and see that there's movement being made and see that there are grassroots folks out there working hard to save this nation. The war we're fighting now does not involve soldiers, nor will it. It does not. It never did. We've been fighting this war for 70 years now. The only problem is we didn't know it until 2020 as a nation. We didn't know it until 2020. But the fact is we know it now. And now that we know it, things are happening. Things are happening. Not that the Convention of States needed 2020. This movement started some 10 years ago. But it's more relevant now than it's ever been. And as each year passes and the debt continues to grow, as each year passes and the government continues to take more steps to infringe on freedoms, as these things happen, this is needed more and more. And the least we can do is know what the hell it is and how we can make a difference. That's the least we could do. It really kills me that I am incapable of highlighting chat. Highlighting chat. Bob Dorman is on. How are you, sir? I see you out there, Bob. So, yeah, and look, I just wanted to make sure I came on. I talked about this. It's Friday. I pushed a lot of stuff off to tomorrow so I could prepare a little something for this. And so, fortunately, I think I've gotten a lot of the issues with this software figured out. My live streams are always a challenge, and since they've been shadow banning me, I haven't been putting out a lot of produced content, so I'm kind of dependent on these, and it drives me nuts when things don't work right. But right now, it appears everything is working well, so that's good. And the only thing I got to get fixed is figure out how to get Rumble back on board. Now, I know, Mike, you were over there on YouTube. If there's any other viewers on YouTube, please do me the favor. You can follow me on Twitter, or please everyone follow me on Twitter. I'm really trying to get a following there. I'm finding it difficult as I'm new to the game at Twitter, even though the account's been there for a while. I never touched it until about a month and a half ago, and we got it up to like 60-something followers right now. But I really want to grow that because I really I'd like to just start I'd like to trim this down to just Facebook, Rumble, and Twitter or X, right? That's where I'd like to get this to. So, but if you're watching on YouTube, there may come a point in the very near future where I just stop streaming to YouTube altogether. I'm going to leave the stuff that I have there archived, but I'm not going to stream anymore. Why? Because YouTube doesn't let anyone see it anyway. And in fact, not only do they not let anyone see it, they just continually rain punishments on me. I got an email from them saying, we've reviewed your channel. I didn't even do anything wrong, but they're like, your past discretions, basically. Like, we've just decided your channel cannot have these features, and they pulled a bunch of features from me, which I don't care because, again, YouTube hasn't been my focus for a long time. But I do have, some 1,400 followers who probably never see my content anyway, but I do keep it going just for them in the event that one does. But Rumble is clearly the highest view that we get, which is killing me now that they've somehow cut me off from Rumble. I don't know if it's Rumble's fault or mine. I'm going to try and just scrape everything down to zero and rebuild everything and see if it works. But we'll see what happens. All right. So other than that, folks, look, I appreciate you guys jumping on me on a Friday. I definitely am sneak attacking with this one. And I might do that from time to time, just kind of jump on. I'm also testing, Wednesday Night Lives. When I come on Wednesday night, it has been uncanny how often I have issues, whatever it may be. And each time I have those issues, I started thinking to myself, like, this just doesn't seem normal. I double check, triple check, quadruple check everything before I go live. When I go live, things start breaking down. In particular, I have a 2 gigabit internet connection, and I start losing. My CPU is not using a ton of resources, but yet during the stream, like, something tends to hiccup and the audio goes out of sync and things start getting wacky. So I was like, let me try this on a different time. And sure enough, here I am on Friday, and it's been seamless. I've had no issues. I've had nothing fail. I've had no, it's almost like I caught whoever's screwing with me off guard and they weren't ready for this. Bob Dorbin says, Cause has changed their front end on the website, more intuitive. Very good. Very good. The website was a little clunky, but you know what? Like, it's kind of like my broadcast being kind of clunky from time. Like, it's like, this is all volunteer work, right? So I know folks at Cause reached out to me a couple years ago to help produce a veterans video for Cause, and because it's all volunteer, and I went ahead and produced it, and they played it at a few different things and events. But I'm sure the people that are doing the website are also, and for that matter, folks, look, if you don't have time to donate your time, you could donate some cash. Don't get it twisted, right? It's not cheap flying around the entire country to all these different legislatures all the time, trying to speak in front of these different committees and houses and senates. This stuff, there's resources that are necessary to keep this thing going, and even then, even for salary purposes, right? People, even some of these volunteers on the higher end who are doing this full time, like they get paid. They gotta get paid. They gotta feed families too. You know what I mean? So keeping those good people in position, as opposed to having them have to go back, back to the workforce without making this their job. Like, the fact that someone would dedicate their whole life to this, is amazing and should be supported. So support with anything you can. I have a monthly ticker. I forget how much I signed up for, but I just wanted to fire and forget kind of thing. So I set up the monthly one. But it all adds up, right? It all adds up. So definitely make it a point, if you haven't done it already, as soon as this, if you still have ears to watch, eyes to watch this and ears to hear it, then make it a point to get over to the website, sign the petition. I've got a link to the Cause website right on the front page of my website. It's the first thing you see. It says sign the petition. It'll take you right to where you need to go, and you can go ahead and sign it. Click the volunteer button, the whole nine. And I may come up with a video. I may do a live one where I actually, once I get a little more handy with this software, I may come out with a live one to just do a walkthrough, like a quick tutorial of how it works. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're not building missiles here, but at the same time, just to give people a feel for how it works. All right. I see, is that showing up on the multi-stream? I'm not sure. See a comment here, Jersey monthly meetings happening next week. So if you're in Jersey, there you go. Is that Mern? That is Mern. I don't know why it's not showing up on my main screen, but I got you there, Mern. So yeah, so Jersey monthly meetings happening next week. Check your locations. Come see us. She says mine is the 24th in Pemberton. So yeah, and folks, like I said earlier, when you go on and you click volunteer, someone like Mern is going to reach out to you. Like whoever the district captain is in your district is going to reach out to you, right? And they're going to, they're not going to, harass you with all kinds of chores and things like that. It's a cordial conversation about saving the country. It's one you should be welcoming. It's one you should be and it's coming from somebody in your neighborhood, right? It's not like somebody in one state communicating in one powerhouse centralized. This is all over the country, folks. Every district has a captain, local, in your neighborhood that you could drive and go see. Like if you went to an event, it wouldn't be like you got to drive up, if you're in New York and you live near the city and you got to drive to Albany. I mean, it'd be nice if you could go to an event like that, but that's not who's going to reach out to you. The person who's going to reach out to you is the person who's in your local district. I mean, I remember when Jack and I, if you remember Jack, who started this channel with me, when we signed up and when I had my epiphany and went through all the pros and cons and decided, the light bulb just, and that's what happens when you finally get it, the light bulb just goes off. You just realize, like, this is it. This is it. This is the way. And I don't care. I don't care if it's popular. I don't care if the word hasn't gotten out enough. I'm just going to one person at a time if I have to. One person at a time if I have to. And I can tell you, I have swayed many a naysayer. When people say you never win online arguments, I have swayed many a naysayer in online arguments. Because the people, you got to understand who we're dealing with here, right? The people that are against this, many of them anyway, not the Soros groups, not JBS, right? Not those groups, okay? I'm talking about just regular citizens who are opposed to this because they've heard those types of scare tactics and they don't know what to say and they don't know what to do. So as a result, they just come out against it. But these are people who are open-minded. These are people who inherently ask questions. It's just when they asked those questions, the wrong people were standing in front of them and misled them. And so when those people are presented, I had a debate with someone, what was it, a week and a half ago, about whether or not the Constitution was a runaway convention. And I kept it really simple. I did a video about this in the past, debunking the runaway convention series. And in the video, I went ahead and made the case and was like, look, I could do this with the founders. I don't have to, I'm not going to take you to articles. I'm not going to take you to, to some scholar's opinion. I'm going to go to James Madison. If you want to tell me that James Madison did not think that he was within his commission, or he and the rest of the delegates were within their commission to do what they did, well, why not ask him? Why would I ask anyone else? And I presented them with Federalist Paper 40, where Madison breaks down exactly why they believed it was within their commission. And that was all it took. That was all. In fact, that person was against it because of JBS. And JBS uses a quote, and I forget the exact quote, but it's at the bottom of the Federalist paper, and they just snip it out of context, and they try to use it in their own argument. And that's part of what turned this person around and let them see JBS for what it really is. Because in the end, that's what they are. They're connivers. They did this with Scalia, trying to act like Scalia was not in favor because there was a quote that he had once that they took completely out of context. And then, I did a video on that too, and showing the entirety of what Scalia said. And it just doesn't hold weight. You quickly see who's conniving and who's just showing you it all. Who's afraid to show it all and who just openly shows it all. And it becomes evident to you who's lying to you. And that's when I say the light bulb went off, that's when it went off. When I started to realize that tactics were being used, that they were literally using the same tactics as Marxist groups. But yet they hide under the veil of a conservative organization, one who acts their whole life against Article 5 and Convention of States, but yet their organization in its earliest days were striving for an Article 5 Convention of States, calling it, ironically, the Liberty Amendments, which is what Levin called it in his book. These organizations are out there, and JBS is probably the most convincing. Because if you hear it from Soros groups, you're like, like if Soros came out and started publicly, without doing it through his groups, just started publicly saying, I'm, totally against this Convention of States. All right, everybody would automatically be in favor of Convention of States. But if you can get a group like JBS to come out against it, well, you muddy the waters like crazy. Because there are people who think JBS has been this great conservative organization forever. They're not. Even John Birch's wife was like, my husband would not want to be associated with this. That organization's a hot mess. It's been totally infiltrated. I don't know what's going on there, but it ain't good. That I can tell you. What do we got here? I can't see the name, but it's on YouTube. Let me go back and see if I got Mike's quote from YouTube. I don't know why I'm not getting anyone else's. Let me. All right, but I can still read what's being said, though. It said, I flew out to Chicago on Tuesday to work with the Illinois team this week. We're everywhere. Absolutely. See, look at that. Illinois representing. Says, no, we don't. The education alone will compel one to share the constitutional passion. Absolutely. Absolutely. The education alone will compel someone to exercise the constitutional passion. And that's, and that's Mike. Okay, that's Mike Arnold. I don't know why I'm not seeing you guys comments in my large font. I'm only like seeing what you guys see on the screen. But yeah, so and that's a big deal too, right? Look, we're everywhere. There's millions of people who are already on board. And I'm telling you, the day the light went on for me, like the day that I said earlier, like the switch just gets flipped. It was the education. It was fully understanding who is lying to me and who is telling me the truth, and then realizing that the founders got this. Like for a while, I was walking around saying the founders, maybe they just couldn't, they couldn't foresee something. How could they foresee everything, right? But then it's like you just get amazed again. Like, yeah, they did. They foresaw everything. Everything. And Bob Dorbin over on Facebook, there's a training webinar. I can send a link for navigation on the new site. Okay, and that was Bob who said the education alone will compel everyone. So that did. Facebook's the only one coming up right now. I don't know what the deal is here, but it is what it is. You just have to deal. All right. Indeed, by the way, I wish General Robert E. Lee a heavenly birthday today. We shall rise again. Yeah. So, all right, guys, this is Friday, and it is now here on the left coast, 7:20 p.m. So I've got you guys, most of my folks on the East Coast, up probably past bedtime. So, that being said, I'm going to cut out. I may jump on again in the next few days just as topics go. I got a few things that I wanted to bark out there. But don't forget to stop by Twitter. Give me a follow there. I definitely am trying to build that. And I appreciate it. I got 18,000 on Facebook, but getting 100 on Twitter does not seem like an easy task. But I do know from starting the Facebook page, it does kind of work like this. It's, that first 100 takes forever, but then it starts to pick up. And then as things go, it starts to move. But the good thing about Twitter is if I can get that to a similar number as Facebook, I don't have to deal like this broadcast on Facebook, despite the fact that I have 18,000 followers and putting at followers in the comment box, it'll get put in front of maybe 100 people. And that's like after a week. That's not like while it's broadcasting. So like I'd like to get it to a point where Twitter will, if I get 18,000 followers, I'm going to let everybody know that I'm on. And if they're annoyed by me or they disagree with me or they don't want to, they can unfollow. I'd much rather live by that standard than be shackled. But until next time, folks, stay free. All right, we got movement going on. I'm going to be jumping on every time I learn of a new movement in cause. I'm going to make it a point to put it on my next broadcast if I don't jump on right away. So yeah, and what's that? Maisie Murdoch says, like and share, people, spread the word. Absolutely. Look, the more of us that if every person can just, I guarantee you've got 10 like-minded friends. If you just stop and think about it, I know your circle's probably as small as mine, but if you stop and think about it, there are at least 5 that you can, probably 5 in your immediate family that you could, that you could convince. But just get them to sign the petition. And if you're in Massachusetts or you know anybody in Massachusetts, get them on board. Get them on board. Now it's hot in Massachusetts right now. Iowa's hot right now. North Carolina's hot right now. You heard, actually, I don't think I played that from Haley Shaw, but Haley was mentioning Connecticut and her whole northeastern sect. Wherever you can influence someone and educate them, right? We're not trying to trick people. Educate them as to how this works, why it can help, right? And if there's questions, if people are shooting back and they got, and you don't know the answer, jump on Wednesday Night Live. Just make a calendar note, 5:30 p.m. I'm going to be on, and I will stop any broadcast that I ever do as soon as I see a question about Article 5. And in the rare event that I can't answer it, there will likely be a wealth of cause supporters, senior level cause supporters, watching the show at the time. And if not, I will make it a point to get back to you. You will message me your question, and I will let you know that way. I will not let it rest until you get your answer. So if you have friends out there who have these questions, or maybe you know about it, but you don't articulate it well, and they're crafty with their words and they keep shutting you down, then send them to me. Send them to me, and we'll make a believer. We'll use the facts to make a believer. All right, folks. Until next time, I'm out.